In this demonstration, we're going to be working with two very, very interesting opposites. We're going to be working with the pusher and Aphrodite. The pusher is a self that many of you would already know. It's the part of us that drives us very mercilessly, usually, to accomplish things. The Aphrodite energy is the energy of sensuality. We use the name Aphrodite just because we enjoy the mythic part of the idea. But basically, it's our sensuality. Our subject, again, is Sidra, and this time we've given her a new name, and her name is Diana. She has spent several sessions with me. I have a background. She has come in because her husband has complained that she is not sensual, that he's unhappy with that. He's quite a flirtatious man, which of course makes Diana very unhappy. She is a very, very competent person, a competent mother, a competent worker. She's a competent everything, and a very, very, very strong pusher drives her. So I'm going to go now to her and begin our discussion. So from everything you've described, it appears that you really have almost like a monkey on your back. I mean, you have somebody that really makes you work full-time plus.
Well, that's the way I've always been.
Yeah.
Pretty much always been. I like to get a lot done at the end of a day. I like to kind of look back and see that I've used the day. I don't like things to go unused.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to meet that person in you who really has these strong feelings about accomplishment. Okay?
Okay. There. A little more.
So, I've heard a little bit about you, not too much, but I really wanted to find out from you really how you see yourself in your job, in her personality. What is your function exactly? What do you do for her?
My function is to get Diana to get things done, to be competent. As you said, competent is one of my favorite words. I like competence.
Yeah.
I like competence. I like accomplishment. I have fun with it.
Uh-huh.
It's not that I feel driven. Everybody says she's driven. I'm not driven.
Yeah.
I like to get things done.
Well, if they say she's driven to her, they're really talking about you.
Yeah.
So some people would see you as driven.
Well, some people, I don't see me as driven.
Yeah.
I get a little bit of a pain here
Right.
sometimes. I mean, when I'm talking, there's like, it gets tight here,
Yeah,
just here.
You talk pretty fast.
Well, you've got to get everything in.
Right.
And I think it's just important to get everything in. And,
Yeah.
and I want us to really make good use of this time.
Right.
So let's see. So you wanted to know what I do.
Yeah.
Well,
What
I
do you
get a
do
lot
for
done.
her?
I take care of her kids. I'm really quite efficient. That's another very important word
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
I'm really very efficient. They get all the loving they need. They get special time. Every kid gets special time with her.
Yeah. Wow.
They get their lessons.
Right.
I get to work.
Yeah.
We've got a really wonderful setup of having
Right.
the kids go to school, and all of their after-school activities are very carefully thought out.
Right.
So they're balanced.
Right.
You know, they do dance, they do creative things, and they do physical things so that everybody's getting everything done just fine.
That's unbelievable.
And yeah, and then I have time to be with her husband. I'm sure, I take care that we go out, we have time to get, I don't know what he's complaining about. We have sex.
You have sex.
Oh, we make love 4 times a week, absolute minimum.
4 times a week.
4 times a week. I
So
think you could skip every other day,
Uh-huh.
but that's about it. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, it's not.
So you wonder what he's complaining about when
really don't know what
you
he's
are there for him.
I am there. I pay total attention to him
him.
when I'm there with him.
Yes.
I'm sure I have her, she dresses sexy. She does all the things. We do everything we're supposed to do.
Uh-huh.
We're very competent at making love.
Wow. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
still he complains.
And still he complains. And I can't understand it. He keeps getting attracted by these sort of frivolous bimbo types.
Bimbos.
Bimbos, they don't do anything. They sit around, they look at him with their big eyes, you
Uh-huh.
know.
And that's the kind he's attracted to.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of appreciation for that kind of woman.
Useless.
That's-
Absolutely useless. I mean,
Right.
they're sitting there drying their fingernails all
Right,
the time.
right, yeah. So in general, you don't really think too much of people that aren't accomplishers and doers in that sense.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not.
But that's the type he's attracted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of laid back. They look like,
Right.
to me, they look like a bunch of harem
Yeah.
beauties.
Let me ask you something. How far back do you go in Diana's life? Have you always been there, or was there a Diana before you or at other times? You know, because certainly you are Diana now and have been for a long
I
time.
did. You told me to move over. I just
Yes.
moved over a little bit. You
I
might
know.
have noticed. But yeah, I've been Diana for a long time, at least since she was 12, 13 years old, something like
Ah,
that. Yeah.
really? 12 or
Yeah.
13?
Yeah.
Well, who was there before 12 or 13?
She was like them, you know. She hung out a lot with her girlfriends, and she spent a lot of time thinking
When you
about.
say like them, you mean she was a bimbo type?
Yeah, she was more like a bimbo type.
Really?
You know, she went to the mall a lot,
Uh-huh.
and she wasted time. She wasted a lot of time.
Oh, I see.
Wasted time. I couldn't believe the amount of time she wasted.
Ah,
She was
wa-
sort of self-indulgent.
Was she sort of sexy then? I mean, was she a sexy little girl
Yeah.
when she was
yeah,
there? She was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different than you?
Yeah. Well,
Different than
I
you.
certainly keep myself fine.
Yeah. So what happened that made you take over? I mean, why did you suddenly, at the age of 12 or 13, take over her personality? Was there any particular thing, or was, you know...
Well, you know, it was time to get down to business.
I see.
It was just time to get down to the
Yeah.
business of life. You know, her father put it very nicely.
Yeah.
He said to her, "You're not a little girl anymore.
I see.
It's really time to start getting on with being a woman and to get on with your life and to
I see.
concentrate on it."
Uh-huh.
Her father's a little bit like me.
Her father's a little bit like you.
Yeah, he likes
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I mean, we see eye to eye. He thinks I'm really interesting, competent,
right,
efficient. We talk a
right.
lot.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's very, very interesting meeting you and talking with you, and you certainly help her get a lot done, that's for sure.
I hope you appreciate
I
that.
appreciate you a
She
lot.
gets more done than any 3 women I know.
Yeah, I
And it's
believe it.
because of me.
I believe it. But I would be very interested also in meeting this, I mean, I'd be interested in meeting the bimbo.
That
Because-
Lolita character sort of thing?
Yeah, well, yeah, because, you know, she has come to me with a problem. And it seems that you are extremely effective in many areas of her life, but there's something that is not working exactly, and it seems like you need some help.
I hate to think of needing help.
Yeah, I know,
I
but the fact
really
is that
don't like that,
something
but it's
isn't
true.
quite working. So let's come back to the aware ego so we have a chance to talk a little bit, okay? So that's the person who took over when you were 12 or 13, and essentially we could say that she has defined who you are in the world, you know, as your primary self, that she has defined exactly who you are,
Yeah.
okay?
I feel like I take a breath when I separate from her. She
She's
breathes
very speedy,
shallow. She's
yeah.
very speedy.
Well, she's very speedy, and she really moves quickly, and there's a lot to get done, and it creates a kind of a pressure system, doesn't it?
I know what the kids mean when they say stop revving.
Ah, they say that a lot to
Yeah,
her when she's
yeah.
in charge. Yeah.
Yeah, they say
So
that.
you're not revving right now when you're separated from her, you see.
That's true.
So what I'd like to do now is have some time with whoever this other, I don't know who it's going to be exactly. Maybe it's the 13-year-old before she took over, or I don't know exactly, but it'll be the other side, so you get a chance to feel the two of them and how they operate inside you, okay? So how about moving over here and let's see who this bimbo character is. My goodness, you're quite an opposite.
You think so?
Yes, I think you're quite an opposite, yeah. It's amazing.
Well, it's nice to be here.
Yeah.
It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, well, it's nice
You
to
have
meet
a sort
you.
of a twinkle in your eye, you know that?
Well, thank you very much, yeah. Well, you would certainly make people twinkle, that's for sure. Yeah. So, am I correct in understanding that you literally have not been around since the age of 12 or 13?
Well, I had a short respite. I had a little bit of time when she fell in love with her husband.
So when she met her husband and fell in love, you were there?
Yeah, I came out.
And you came out?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Well, that's
You
very
know what?
interesting.
I just thought of it. I buy her blouses. They're tailored, but they're silk.
Oh, so you buy the blouses?
Yeah.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did come out. I did come out a little bit when she met him because I liked being with him.
Uh-huh.
He had the softest curly black hair you ever want to see.
And you love to feel it.
I just loved,
Touch.
the feel of it.
Yeah.
It's
So
just delicious.
what happened then? I mean, you came out and they got married, and you were there when they got married?
Yes.
And then what
I was
happened?
there on the honeymoon.
And you were there on the honeymoon?
And I was there on the honeymoon.
And then what happened?
Well, I think I was there a little too much on the honeymoon.
Really?
I was kind of noticing all the men.
Ah, so
They
when you
went-
come out, you notice men.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
I
went
see.
snorkeling and they were at the beach.
I
and
see. Uh-huh. Did he get
I had
scared
on
of
my
you a little bit?
bitty bikini.
Oh, I see.
And then the Beach Boys were so cute.
Uh-huh.
God, they had these darling Beach Boys. And I was looking at them and he said I should stop looking.
Really? So he got a little bit scared by your
Yeah,
coming out.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Did you just start
And
to
then
go
her
away?
mother said, she didn't like the way I looked at people either.
So her mother really sort of also put the kibosh on you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you this. When she was much younger and you were there as this frivolous little girl that, at a younger age, you were there at that time. So how did Diana's parents react to you when you came out?
Well, her father absolutely loved me. We were pals.
Oh, really?
We were total pals. We used to do everything together.
Really?
And he used to call me his Diana.
Really? Oh, wow.
Her mom called me Di, but her father called me his Diana.
Uh-huh.
He picked the name.
Uh-huh. He picked the name.
He wanted.
So you were very close to him.
He wanted to think about the moon, so he named me Diana.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Wow.
She's the goddess of the moon.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
how did the mother feel about your close relationship to her father?
Well, she didn't like it.
Didn't like it too much.
No, she
So
used to give me looks, but I didn't care because I really liked her dad.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Her mom was kind of, you know what her mom was like?
What?
Her mom was like that pushing thing.
Ah, she was very busy
She
and
was always
doing...
busy and she was always doing, and her dad and I, we used to sit. We used to go out to the park
Wow, I see.
and we would sit. I liked watching television with him.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We would curl up. He'd watch cartoons with me on
Uh-huh.
Saturday mornings.
And were you very physical together also?
We'd curl up together.
So there was a lot of physical affection
snuggle
also.
and
So
he felt
happened?
good.
Yeah, what
He
happened
felt
then?
good.
When did that change?
Well, like she said, when she was about 12,
Yeah.
then he said to me, he said, I think you're a little bit big for us to cuddle and watch television like this.
Uh-huh.
You're getting to be a big girl. That was the words he used. You're getting to be a big girl now. You're getting...
Uh-huh. So he really, at that point, literally cut you out of the picture?
Yeah.
And then she essentially took over,
Yeah.
and then she was able to relate to him on very different terms, but he was happy with her. But you went bye-bye.
But I went away, and it was
Ah.
I liked him.
Yeah.
He used to smell of Aramis, cologne.
Really? Uh-huh.
And he was so nice. He was so nice to cuddle with.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Diana is very happy, unhappy because her husband is always flirting at parties and so forth. But it's very interesting because if you were out in her life, I mean, the party would be a very different thing for her.
I would just love to flirt again.
love to flirt.
Before she gets too old.
Uh-huh.
I would just love to get out and be able to.
How old would she have to be before you would be too old to flirt? 109 would be my guess.
Probably.
Yeah. It would be a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were a part of Diana's life, you really would have a very different kind of connection to people and and social things and parties and other men and so forth.
Well, I'm much slower than she is.
Yeah,
And when I'm with the person, I'm really with them.
Yeah.
She concentrates,
Yeah.
but I like to feel them.
So you haven't been part of the sexuality at all in the relationship.
She's always in such a rush.
She's doing her duty.
Well, it's the last thing on her list.
Yeah. So she has sex and is very responsible about it, but you it would be, if you were there, it would be a very different quality
Yeah,
of sensuality and contact.
I would take my time.
Right. Yeah.
And I would remember, you know, sometimes I get a peek at him, and he's still a good-looking man.
Yes. Uh-huh.
He's still attractive, and I still, you know, sometimes I look at him, you know, at the curve of his eyelashes or the
So
way
what
he
stops
holds
you
his,
from
his
coming
hands.
in?
I love his hands.
What stops you from coming in at those times?
I don't know. I think at this point she's uncomfortable with. There's something that gets scared.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It's almost like someone over here is afraid when you come up that some violation of boundaries or something. That's what it feels like. Is that, you know, some...
Well, something like that. Something like she might do something, you know, that she's afraid I
Inappropriate.
might do something inappropriate. Or, you know, I'll tell you something. I like to be admired.
Yeah.
And he doesn't look at me anymore.
Oh, no, that's not true now. He doesn't look at her anymore. I give you an absolute 100% money-back guarantee that if you were there, he would look at you. But remember, you're not living with him. You haven't been part of this marriage now for something like 15 years.
That's right.
You haven't been there. She's been married to him.
That's right.
Okay. If you were part of the marriage, it would be a very different story.
That's right.
I mean, I say that based on a lot of experience with a lot of people.
You look like you know.
I know. This I know, I can tell you that. So it's a very important thing for this aware ego to learn how to begin to bring you back into her life and use your energy along with hers. She does a great job and really accomplishes an enormous amount. She's really a very major player.
She's murder in bed.
Mm-hmm. She's murder in bed, yeah. So if you were there, the combination would be unbelievable, wouldn't it? Yeah, I'll bet it would. Well, I very, very much have enjoyed meeting you and talking with you.
Well, it's really been a pleasure.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk to you more.
Good. Well, who knows? Let's come back to the Aware Ego. So can you feel those two selves now? Over here is this, you know, really very, very significant power energy that allows you to accomplish so much. And it's true she races and she's on the freeway a lot, but look what she does. You know, look how much you're able to do in the world. But because you've been identified with her, you've lost the ability to play in this playing field. Mm-hmm. And in this playing field, we have very different energies. We have the Aphrodite energy we talked to, but we have also the child, and we have the being energy, and we have the soul energy. So it's a different playing field, you see. And your job is to learn how to play in that playing field while you still are embracing these people over here who give you security and power and authority in the world of a, you know, a very, very important kind. That's the job that you have.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, it sounds doable.
Yeah. So what I wanted you to do now, I want to just give you an experience of literally of learning how to bring Aphrodite into your life, okay? And what I'd like you to do really is to take the energy of this Aphrodite self and just sort of invite her to be a part of you. Can you feel how she comes in and what happens when you bring her in? You see? Mm-hmm. So now it's your choice to bring her in or not bring her in, or how much to bring her in. It's none of my business whether you use her or don't use her. My job is to give you choice. So you have the choice of using that energy or letting it go, coming back to the aware ego, or using that energy. You have a lot to do and you want to go into Rev mode because there's a lot to accomplish. You bring that into, so that's available to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could feel it. It tightens and it
contracts and it tightens, yeah. Or let that go again. And one more time, just to feel that Aphrodite energy. That, okay. Don't need words with that energy. The energy does its own thing. Let that go, and back to the aware ego. So this is the first pair of opposites that we're dealing with, you see, and there are, of course, many, many different opposites. Primary self that has really led you very, very well, you know, that was essentially born when you were about 12 or 13, when the father essentially said, no more Aphrodite. He couldn't handle her anymore. Whether he was afraid of her or afraid of his own sexuality or afraid of your sexuality, we don't know. Doesn't matter at this point. The point is he was really afraid to handle her. So he cut it. And that, of course, caused a lot of pain.
Yeah, I could, when she was talking about, when I was realizing that,
yeah,
I could feel that my father and I had been so close.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the real closeness went away, that kind of intimate feeling we had with each other.
Right.
And what I had instead was somebody to talk business to.
Right.
I talk about school and talk about accomplishments, and that's why she kept talking about accomplishments.
Right. Well, you shifted selves at that point, and that was safe and that wasn't safe.
You know, I have a sense now of the difference between this and me, between that pusher and me.
Uh-huh.
And I have a sense now of what my husband was talking about, because I really can feel there's a different kind of connection with you now. Whereas before, there was no connection.
Right, right.
And here, there's a lot of connection.
Right.
But
and your job is to have both available and to learn how to regulate them in ways that satisfy both sides. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is something we've seen very commonly, lots of women. They've been really close to their fathers, or their Aphrodite has developed beautifully and comfortably and without anything self-conscious about it in the early years of their lives. They're related to their bodies. They're related to their natural flirtatiousness. There's nothing as flirtatious as a 5 or a 6-year-old little girl. Their Aphrodites are just shining. Sometimes I call them little Aphrodites. At any rate, this comes very naturally to them. And then as they hit adolescence, as they hit 12, 13 years old, very frequently the relationship to the father gets stopped, it gets blocked. Some fathers, as in the case of Diana, will actually say something like, you're a big girl now, or you're a woman now, we can't be so close, we can't be so centrally related. Some of them get absolutely negative and get judgmental about the girl's sexuality as it matures. But the majority of the fathers just get cold. They just withdraw. From one day to the next, they stop hugging them, they stop holding them, they stop being so physical with the daughters, and the daughters just don't know what hit them. They just don't know what it was that they did that was wrong. And all they did that was wrong was to become women. And as they became women, the father very frequently wasn't able to handle his own sexual feelings, because we're not taught to do that in our society. And the mother started to feel a little bit threatened and started to withdraw her energy, or even do something, either make actual comments of this is inappropriate behavior, or just withdraw energy and get cold and look disapprovingly when the daughter's Aphrodite, natural Aphrodite nature would emerge. So we've seen this Aphrodite very frequently put away at the age of 12 or 13 to reemerge for a few days or a few months or a few years to catch a husband, and then again put away after marriage because it looks as though she could be a threat to the marriage. And the sad thing about losing the Aphrodite energy is if you lose her out in the world, you usually lose her in the bedroom as well, and you lose her in your primary relationship as well as the relationships with other people. In this demonstration, Hal is going to play George. George is a man in his early 40s who was referred to me by his physician. George has had some heart troubles recently. He's a very responsible kind of person, and his physician had some instinct that this had to do with a stressful life. George has responsibilities on many levels. He has a business that is quite successful. He's an entrepreneur and he's in charge of it. He's married, he has 2 children, and he's fairly active in civic affairs as well. Now, George has been to see me about 3 times, and he's beginning to get used to the idea of talking to me and of doing some voice dialogue. I'm going to ask him to speak to his responsible self, since we do think this has something to do with the heart trouble he's been having. Well, George, good to see you again, and as a result of the things we've been talking about these last couple of days, I was thinking it would be a good idea to talk to that responsible part in you. Do you think that would be all right?
Well, I understand that that's sort of the basis of the work that you do, and it does seem strange to me since, I mean, I am responsible, but I'm certainly willing to try it. So what do you want me to do exactly?
Well, what I'd like you to do is move over a little bit, wherever it seems comfortable, and then we'll be talking to your responsible part.
To me as the responsible part?
To you as the responsible part. Mm-hmm. So George moves his chair, and we're now speaking to the responsible part, leaving George where the chair had been. Well, how do you do?
It feels different here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do fine. I do very fine.
I've heard about you. I've heard that you do fine, that you do a lot of things, that you take care of a lot of people, that you're very active.
Well, that's my job. I am very responsible, and I do it very, very well. I have a business and that I started.
Really?
And I see that every aspect of that business is run well. You know, I try to hire good people, but I'm the one that makes sure that the details are taken care of, and I have a successful business because of it.
So you really keep track of everything that's going on?
Everything. There's nothing that escapes me. That's the responsible way to be and to run a business. That's why businesses fail, because the leader doesn't take that kind of responsibility.
Do you feel similarly around the house?
Oh, yes. Yeah, a house is like a business. You know, there are so many details. You know, you have the house itself physically has to be taken care of. The children have to be taken care of, which is an immense project in itself.
Really? In what ways?
Well, I mean, there are so many details. You know, there are lessons they have to be taken to. I mean, it's like coordinating the invasion of Normandy to run a house. You know, there are so many details, the lessons and who's going to pick them up, and the meetings at night, and we take raising children very seriously. So, I mean, there's just so many details to attend to. I constantly, you know, making lists and filling my agenda book, and, you know, it's a lot to happen. And then there's being married, and that has responsibilities. Because,
really? What are they?
Well, I try very hard to see that my wife has a good life and to help her as much as I can and to see that she doesn't get overworked. So I'm always trying as best I can to make things easier for her and to not have her burdened. I feel very troubled when I feel that she's burdened. So I try to unburden her, and I do a lot at home. I really don't stop. I mean, I really start early in the morning and, you know, till fairly late at night. And
it's interesting. It sounds as though there are 2 things you do. You're the one who checks up to see that everything's done, even if something has been delegated, that you're a kind of a buck stops here person.
Well, if I had my way, I'd never delegate anything. I mean, you can't do that in life. You have to delegate, but I do it unwillingly, and I make sure that whoever I delegate to, you know, that I'm on top. I mean, that's what I make sure.
So they really know that if anything goes wrong, they can lean on you, or you're going to be there to catch them in some way.
Well, that's what my wife says about me. She says that I let too many people lean on me. She does say that a lot, and I've had friends tell me that. I never knew what that meant. But the fact is that people do lean on me.
Have you always been like this, or was there a time when you started?
Well, when he was an adolescent, I wasn't there.
Really?
When he was an adolescent, he got pretty wild. And for a couple of years, he was really out there, and he was having a really good time, and nothing meant anything to him other than having fun and being crazy, and he had a wild group of friends. And then he got into an automobile accident, and he was driving the car, and he got into an automobile accident, and then it's like his parents really cracked down, and that accident scared the other guy, I guess. Anyhow, I came in after that, and I said, listen, we're not, he'd been drinking a little bit, and, because that's where he was then. And so I just came in, and I just put the kibosh on that kid. I just said, that's it, And his parents, of course, supported me, and everybody loves me always, and, I'm pretty good to have around.
I bet.
I could run the world very well. I could run it better than God could run it. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. So you really came in and essentially saved his life and made it safe and
I think that if I
organized
hadn't have
it.
come in, I think this wild kid would have really eaten him up. I think he would have gotten into all kinds of stuff that he'd have been way over his head. Yeah, really and truly. This is not a control kid,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I think I saved his life. Yeah, I really do. Yeah.
Okay, well, you understand about things. You understand how people work. Apparently, you pay a lot of attention to that.
Yes,
a lot of attention to
absolutely.
stress
Yeah, I
and
take it very
overwork.
Yes.
And what I'd like to bring up for your consideration is George is a little overworked right now.
Well, I mean, if the heart problems he's having are a function of me, I mean, that's pretty serious. I mean, I'm taking that very seriously. I mean, I'm willing to look into things, myself, because that scares me.
Okay, well, one of the things I'd like to do, if it meets with your approval, is to touch into that wild kid, but just for a little bit. Because George needs some kind of psychological balance right now.
Now, when you say touch in, what do you mean by touch in?
Well, like I'm talking to you,
Yeah.
I'd be talking to him too,
Okay.
just a little bit, so that George starts taking charge of things. Up until now, you've essentially been driving his car.
Right.
Because when that wild one drove his car, literally he got him into an
Yeah,
accident.
well, I've been George. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah.
I'm George. So.
So if you could find somebody who you could trust, like George himself, rather than that wild kid, I think it might help matters a little.
Well, I'm willing to have a go at it. I mean, but I would like to make it clear that I want to stay in charge. I mean, I'm not willing to turn this car that you're talking about over to that kid. As long as I can stay around and be there, I'm willing to try it.
Okay, I think that's really important for you to know that I have no intention of supplanting you.
Okay.
Just enhance. Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Okay.
And I'd like to go back to George now.
Okay.
Now we're going back to what we call an aware ego. We're separating George from this primary self of responsibility, or responsible father, as we sometimes call it, has been running George's life very effectively, very efficiently, and to the delight of a lot of people around him. Now we're back in what we call the aware ego, because this ego, or this George, is aware of this responsible father and is not quite the same as the responsible father. To the other side is the wild boy.
I have to say, this is really quite shocking to actually sit here now and feel that separation from him, because I do feel a separation from him. I mean, I hadn't any idea in the world that that's who I was. I just had no idea at all, and it's quite surprising to sit here this way. So,
do you feel a difference in your body?
I feel more relaxed. He's really... it's almost like a tension that runs all the way up and down here, and I'm feeling much more relaxed than before. Yeah, much more relaxed.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay, now what I would like to do is to go over and talk to the other side.
So just move my chair
Just move
again?
your chair over to the other side, and what I'd like to do is touch into that wild boy he was talking about.
Well, there's a lot of pressure from over there. Gotta sit for a second, see if I can get here. I don't get a chance to come out. I mean, it's been a long time, 20 25 years since I've been out. Yeah.
So it's kind of unfamiliar at the moment, but you're looking.
Unfamiliar doesn't even describe it.
It
You know,
doesn't.
he's so terrified of me. You know, he thinks if I come out, it's going to be the end of civilization. You know.
Well, what was it like when you were out?
Well, I mean, you know, he describes me as some crazy wild kid. You know, I'm a 16-year-old. I had something to drink that night. You know, and I had an accident. Well, it wasn't right. But, you know, it's not, you know, a lot of kids do that. You know, I had fun.
You did have
I had
fun.
a gang of kids, and we had fun, and we partied, and we drank, and we messed around, and we, you know, mated with the girls, and we just had a real good time, you know. I mean, I think I'm fantastic. I mean, I think that, I'll tell you something very honestly.
Right.
If I were around, this guy would not have heart problems.
He
I got to
wouldn't.
tell you. I mean, I'm like a big snake that he tries to lock up in a box. You know what I mean? How can he hold me back? But, you know, if I were around, his life would be different.
How would it be different? How would it be different? And you are like a big snake. It takes a lot of energy.
Well, first of all,
to
I'm not
stand
into
in a
all
box.
this responsibility crap that he's into. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, you can take all this stuff. He takes care of the business. He takes care of the, you know, his wife. He takes care of the children. He takes care of other people socially. I mean, he takes care of everybody. I mean, screw that. What about taking care of himself? What about taking care of me? If he wants to take care of somebody, take care of me. Have fun. Go, you know, go away, you know, go away every weekend, sleep out overnight, take more holidays, let the kids are old enough to be alone. I mean, just have fun in life. He's really heavy. I mean, really heavy. Look at me, I'm relaxed. I'm relaxed. But also, you know, I like women.
You do.
Yeah. You know, I'm not into monogamy.
You're not.
No. If I were the only one involved,
What would happen?
well, he'd have 200 girlfriends, 300 girlfriends, 400 girlfriends. I couldn't count them. You know what I mean? I like women.
You notice them, huh?
Oh, I really notice them, yeah. But you see, as soon as I notice them,
What happens?
he kills me. You know, he acts as though he's a sexless man. You know what I mean? He's become so responsible. It's like he was middle-aged when he was 18. You know what I mean? Because he comes across as being so responsible and so careful. And if he's married, it's God forbid you should be attracted to another woman, or God forbid you should flirt, or any. I mean, I think it's abnormal. Personally, I really think it's abnormal, and I think it's affecting his health. And I mean, I really don't need to sleep with a lot of women. That's not what I'm about. But God, I sure would like to be able to flirt with them and see them and make it a part of my life. I mean, wow, he just hits me on the head and knockout. You know,
It's like he closes your eyes as soon as you open them.
knockout drops. He has knockout drops that he carries in his pocket, a little bottle, you see. And every time I come up and I look, he goes, boop, knockout drop in my mouth, and I'm out. So don't knock me out. He's a big boy. He can handle it. He'd have
So
a
you-
better sex life, I'll tell you that.
Really?
I
You'd
promise.
bring that- You would.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot more juice.
I got juice. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
a lot of
right. I
juice
got
for
juice.
life.
I got juice. He got no juice. I got juice. I'm not responsible. He's responsible. We're a good team. I don't need to take over. I just like my day in court. That's all.
Okay, if there were one thing that you'd like to start with,
One thing.
one thing, just not too terribly shocking.
One thing, not too terribly shocking. I'd like him to go away this weekend alone. I'd like him to do something that feels like fun. Okay? There's a car show coming up. And I'd like him to go to that car show, stay away overnight, you know, be with me, and look at all these cars and vans and boats, and I mean, it's a fantastic thing. You know, it's a recreational vehicle kind of thing. And just have a ball and not have his wife with him. Okay? And just have fun. Eat a good hamburger, and maybe go to a movie at night that he wants to see, you know, something with Arnold Schwarzenegger, or somebody who, you know, is just a totally non-redemptive film, you know, the kind of thing I like. Because I don't like all this serious stuff. And just have fun, that's all. Go to bed, watch television, Let him watch television until 4 o'clock in the morning if he wants. Just do whatever it is that we all feel like doing. Then go home, be responsible, and the next weekend maybe plan something with his wife.
Oh, that sounds like it would be a very different thing. It would be very different from anything he's ever done for all these years.
It would be very different than anything he's ever done from all these years.
I was just thinking, there's one other area I wanted to ask you about, and that's anger. He's so responsible, he doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
I would kick ass. You know, when somebody at work screws up, he is so careful to be careful. I mean, you have no idea. This is control on top of control on top of control. I would say, for Christ's sake, I've talked to you 9 times about this, you know, get off your ass, do something. Not him. You see, he thinks that would kill the person, hurt the person. I think everybody would be relieved out of their minds if he ever really, really, really let go like that. I think everybody would be relieved. I really mean it. I think he creates a tension around him because everybody's feeling at some level me underneath.
It's funny, you have a certain wisdom about you, don't you?
Well, I mean, now that you got me going, I could be here for 20 hours. I really appreciate having the chance to come out, and I hope he pays attention to me.
Well, good. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary to think of him, you know, becoming part of my life, but I feel so different in here. I mean, it just feels so loose and all. I mean, it really, it's quite shocking, really.
It's almost like the blood flows when he's there.
Well, it feels like it. It feels like the blood flows when he's there, and it's just a question of whether I'm strong enough to, I mean, they're so different, and you know, to handle the two of them that's the key.
Well, that's the key, and it's a slow learning, and that's the reason I asked to talk to both of them.
Yeah.
And we don't want you to flip from one to the other,
Right.
because when this more wild one was running things, it wasn't totally safe, and now we have the balance to look forward to.
Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Thank you. So we see the change when we separate from a primary self, get in touch with an aware ego, and move over to a disowned self that carries a very opposite energy. In this work, we don't rush to move into a disowned self. Our idea is always to create an aware ego that can keep its arms around each of the selves and take from each what is appropriate.
From my standpoint, I believe that this demonstration gives you a very clear picture of what many health problems are about. Many health problems are about disowned selves, because every time a self is disowned, it's a certain amount of energy that's blocked. In the course of the discussion, I spoke about a snake that's being locked in a box. Whenever we lock our energy up, it is as though a huge snake is in a box and we're sitting on top of the box trying to stop the snake from coming out. That, of course, has very strong effects, not just psychologically, but also physically, and is the basis for a lot of health disorders.
You see the amount of energy that we're losing both in controlling the snake or controlling this wild man, and in the energy that that boy brings with him. He has a tremendous amount of joy of life. He has a joie de vivre about him. His blood flows more freely. He's more spontaneous. He's less controlled. He carries a whole energetic spectrum that George hasn't had available to him earlier, and that he needs to bring back so that he can function and his body starts to move more naturally through life.
Voice dialogue is a simple process for objectifying the different selves that make up the personality. In this demonstration, we're going to be working with the part that we call the pusher, and one of the opposites of the pusher, which is, we'll call her the lover, the one that wants a different quality of life. We always start with the primary self in this work. So from what you've described, it seems like you do have a strong part of you that drives you in the world. I'd like you to move over to that person that we'll give a name to of the pusher for the time being, okay?
I'd be delighted. I'd be delighted to talk about myself.
So as I understand it, from what Marilyn has told me, it seems that the pressure that you create is quite intense for success.
Well, that's the only way you reach success in this world, especially as a woman. But men, too. Particularly for a woman, you have to work hard, you have to make the most of all your time, you have to optimize everything.
Right.
And you can't get distracted by anything extraneous. You have to push, do what has to be done, not let go of the momentum you build up, because
Yeah.
I've seen too many people lose their momentum.
Yeah, you even talk very quickly, you know what I mean? It's like you want to get
Yeah, I don't want to waste
At
time.
work, for example?
I'm totally in charge of her at work. They tell me I'm a little speedy sometimes.
Right.
But, you know, basically, I like to get things done.
And you get the job done faster. Yeah,
I cut to the bottom line a lot.
Right,
I'm not into
right.
process.
yeah.
I like to cut to the solution.
And from what I gather from what you described to me, it seems as though in the work situation you've been quite successful with her.
Very successful. I know how to make other people work fast, too,
Yeah.
and how to, you know, get rid of extraneous.
Well, where don't you work out? In other words, what doesn't work for you?
Well, the truth of the matter is I don't work really well in relationship because I'm really, actually, even in relationship, I sort of have a schedule. You meet somebody, you should get involved with them, and I've got an idea that she should get married. She's getting on, and she should get married because it's about time for her to have a child. And I'd like her to do that.
Gets going.
Yeah, but you have to concentrate on it, and I put a certain amount of time aside for her to go and do things
Right.
and meet people. I try to plan the way to do it the best way
You know,
possible.
I have the feeling talking with you that it's like driving on a highway or a freeway. You are driving on this freeway most of the time when you're in charge, right? And there's no time for getting off the country roads or going slowly or...
Well, you get the same place in the end if you go on the country roads. If you go on the freeway, and you get there a lot faster on the freeway. I have a lot of, you know, if I think about myself, I've got a big horsepower engine.
Right, you should.
It's not, I'm not a little bit of a thing. I've got a lot to do, and I get a lot done, and it feels good.
I can see that. Well, I think I have a pretty good sense of who you are. She talks about some physical complaints that she's been having. You know, she gets these headaches.
But you take a couple of aspirin and they go away. It's no
yeah.
problem. It's nothing really physiological. There's nothing wrong with any
As far as you're
system.
concerned,
Absolutely not. So you take
the
the
pressure, because you do create a kind of pressure system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But without a pressure, who has ever amounted to anything without pressure?
Well, I can understand that viewpoint. I can.
And
yeah.
I want her to amount to something.
Well, thank you very much. Let's come back to the aware ego. So here we're in the aware ego. The aware ego is that center point. She now is separated from the pusher at a certain level for the moment. And now we're going to move to the other side and see what that looks like. So it's interesting talking with her because she does create a high pressure vortex around her.
Well, I
and
feel very different here. I really, there's no rush to get anything done.
Right,
She
right.
was feeling as though she had to get a lot said and a lot covered in
Yeah.
a short period of time.
so this place we call the aware ego because you have separated from that pusher at a certain level. And once you separate from a part, we simply call that the aware ego.
Makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
because I'm aware of her.
Right. So on the other side is somebody who obviously feels much different. Could we move over to that other side and see who's there? So tell me about yourself. What's your job in her personality?
I could find her a husband.
You could find her husband. Would you guarantee that?
I could work at it.
You'd have a lot of fun in the process.
All the wrong way. And
How-
I'd have a lot of fun doing it, yes. I'd have a lot of fun doing it. I know how to enjoy life. I know how to look out a window. I know how to lie on a beach.
Yeah.
I know
Oh, my
how to
goodness.
be with a man.
I bet you do.
I sure do.
So how is it that you got lost? I mean, how come she doesn't have you available?
Well, I think when she finished college and she went into business.
Uh-huh. It was just too much pressure.
Too much pressure. She took, you know what she did? She took one trip. She took this marvelous trip around the world.
Yeah.
And I came out and I had a wonderful
So
time.
you took the trip around the world?
I took a trip around the world and I met people all over.
Gotcha.
I
Yeah.
had a wonderful time and I ate wonderful things and I met wonderful people.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Yeah.
And there were always
Yeah.
things to do. We didn't hurry.
Yeah,
I didn't see
know.
any sights that had to be seen.
Well, if she had you available and her available, that would be quite a combination, wouldn't it? I want to thank you very much for talking with me, okay? Let's come back to the Aware Ego. So can you feel both of them right now?
Mm-hmm.
And just to help you to feel yourself in this place of the Aware Ego, I want you really to imagine that you could use this energy on your own, okay? And just imagine that you're bringing that energy into yourself and using it with me. That's right. It's like
melting into you.
melting into me. That's right.
Delicious.
And you can make that as strong as you want or as weak as you want. You see? You could also turn it down. It's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And now let her go. Back to the Aware Ego. And now invite in this side, this pusher who really has helped you so enormously. And feel how your body changes.
It tenses up.
It tenses up
Tenses
a lot.
up, and I can feel my shoulders going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I wonder what you're going to say next.
Right.
What
right.
I'm going to
You're
say next.
on the freeway again.
Yeah.
Okay. And let that go. And now just let them both be there. Okay. Where you go.
It feels a little wobbly, but it feels good.
Yeah.
It's quieter.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this way, we have separated Marilyn from the primary self system that we call the pusher. And we have also given her a beginning experience of an energy on the other side that's really a combination of different people. It's a little bit of the sensuality, a little bit of the just ability to be, a little bit of the ability to drive the country roads rather than always being on the freeway of life. This is only a start because it takes time for the Aware Ego to get stronger, but it's a strong start.